Hey everybody, it's Zahava. Welcome back to the channel. You may have noticed that the lighting in this video is not great and or conducive to an introduction to a new series that we're going to be doing on this channel, which is essentially tackling my physical TBR. And the reason for this terrible lighting and the fabric backdrop is because I have been legit avoiding recording this video for about a week and a half to 2 weeks right now because I'm not really sure how to go about it. I didn't really have enough energy, and it's just such a daunting task that I just didn't know where to begin. So I think that what we're going to do is I'm going to take the time that it's 6 o'clock in the morning right now. I'm on my second cup of coffee. Everybody is out of the house, and we're going to have a little heart-to-heart before we get through the actual TBR walkthrough. So here's the story, a little bit of history. I have been a reader my entire life, and normally my habit has been to discover a book, hear about a book, browse a bookstore, and find a book, and if it sounded interesting to me, or if the back cover blurb was interesting to me, I would pick up the book, or if it was an author that I was already familiar with, any of those scenarios, I would pick up the book, bring it home, read it, and then if I liked the author because it was a new author, or if I wanted the second or third in the trilogy, I would at the most buy 1 or 2 books more of that author's backlist and or the following installments in the trilogy or set of novels. Now, I have never had on my physical TBR in my entire life more than 2 or 3 books waiting. I had no idea that anybody could have more than 2 or 3 books on their physical TBR. Like, it just didn't occur to me that this was a thing. I always assumed that people had libraries that showcased the beautiful books that they had read. And that's what you did with books, because that's what you did with books, right? After you bought them, you read them, you put them on your shelf, and it became this gorgeous display of a reflection of your personality and your tastes and the authors that you love and all of that jazz. It never would have occurred to me that somebody could have more than those 2 or 3 books that they could simply just go and pick off their shelves whenever they were in the mood for something new, because historically my habit always was to pick myself up and go to the bookstore and buy a new book. Simple, right? So now I find myself being influenced by the internet. And when I discovered that people had TBRs that were 50, 100, 150, 200, sometimes all the way up to 400 books that they had sitting on shelves at home that they hadn't read, my mind was blown. I'm like, you can do that? You can actually go and buy books and just leave them on your shelf and not read them? I had literally no idea that people could do this. Now, you might be laughing at me, but I'm not laughing at myself. This is a very, very scary place where I am right now, because I have over 200 books on my TBR, and that is since I started BookTube in October of 2024. And right now, it is March 7th, 2025. So that is a crazy amount. Now, it's not to say that I bought all these books new. Most of these books I bought either heavily discounted at Book Outlet or at thrift stores. I think maybe 1 or 2 I bought new, or if I went to Indigo, I picked them up on the bargain section. And a few of them I actually kept back from some of my eBay resale book hauls that I get. So if I thought that the book was interesting enough and I knew that it wouldn't resell at an acceptable rate, then I kept it for my own reading, basically. So here we are, 6 o'clock in the morning, me finally getting over my shyness and having the confidence to do the somewhat wordy intro to this video. But I think that it's very important because it provides you with a context and where my mind is at this point in time. And I think we're finally at the point, I say we, but it's really me. I'm finally at the point where I know that my physical TBR is quite out of hand. And because it gives me also some structure as to where to go with this channel, I think that a TBR takedown is probably the next sort of phase of where we're going to be going. So yeah, that's basically the story. So today in episode 1, we are going to be going through not the entire physical TBR, because a couple of videos ago, you guys will have seen a big book unboxing, a book haul of 40 plus books, where I went through some books from Book Outlet and from the Shadow and Spice box. So I'm not going to be going through those books again because you guys just saw that very recently and I don't want to bore anyone, least of all myself. However, The books that I have, which were not part of that haul, we will be going through again. I have my gimbal here, so we'll be able to walk around the house because, as you know, I have books stashed a little bit everywhere because, you know, this is actually my daily grind. What you see behind me now, I own a fabric store, but we're here actually to talk about books here on YouTube. So I don't have a big backdrop of books behind me. My books are kind of stashed around all around my house. So if you're new here, we're going to be walking around the house. We're going to be looking at the books that you haven't seen in a while. I'll show you the covers. I may talk about them a little bit. I don't really know how it's going to go because I've never done a video of this nature before, but I'll try not to keep you guys here too long. And I should also confess that yesterday on Poshmark, I bought 2 series that are 6 books. So one is the Broken Empire trilogy by Mark Lawrence, and the other is the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. And the reason I bought those is because my husband left me alone for too long, and I was just scrolling. I was on Poshmark and I found a really good deal on the series. I think for the First Law trilogy, it cost me 25 Canadian dollars, and I think that the seller had some reduced shipping on Poshmark, so the shipping, instead of it being like $12 or $13, ended up being $9. So I thought that that was a great deal. And for the Broken Empire trilogy, I did pay up a little bit the shipping. I think it was standard Poshmark shipping for Canada, which was $12.49, but the trilogy itself they wanted $17 for. So I feel like all in all, this was a really good deal, and I'm happy with that. So there's going to be 6 books coming in, which are not going to be on this video because I don't know when they're going to come in, but those will be added to the physical TBR. And I bought them not having any previous experience with those authors, but because it was a good price. You know how it goes. Okay, so enough blah blah from me. Please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you like this kind of content, which is slightly neurotic and a little bit unrehearsed, and, you know, read the channel intro blah blah, because really what you see is what you get. And we're going to skip forward a couple of hours until we have some better lighting in the living room, and then we will get started on cataloging the physical TBR.
3 days later.
Okay, so I'm not really sure how we're going to go about doing this physical TBR. I thought that we could just sort of go through the cart, show you the titles one by one, and then kind of move around the house. I'm not really sure how to tackle this whatsoever, but yeah, I think that this is going to be the best way, and I'll just pull them out and we will see how we go. So the first thing I have here is Wade in the Water, and I'm not going to pronounce like every author name. I'll just show you the titles and stuff because otherwise it's going to get like pretty crazy. So this one here is in a dark wood. I actually ended up finding this one in a thrift store. I was going to buy it at the book outlet sale, but I didn't get to the cart checkout fast enough, and it didn't end up being in the cards for me. But then I guess it did end up being in the cards for me at the end of the day because I ended up finding it in a thrift store just a couple of days later. So that was pretty cool. Then there's this one here, which I picked up, I think, also at a thrift store. I think it cost me like $3.25. There you go, $3.25. But it didn't really get like such good reviews. So I'm actually thinking of unhauling this one. If you guys have read it, let me know what you think, because this one I probably will end up unhauling just because I think I have too many books, and that one I have potentially lost interest in. Then I've got Notes on an Execution. I think it's also a fiction, if I'm not mistaken. Then I have a copy of This Time Tomorrow. Maybe I'll put them here on the couch and hopefully they won't fall down. I have a copy of The Hidden Girl and Other Stories. So this is something that I picked up in the bargain section, I think at Indigo. It is by Ken Liu. It's a bunch of short stories. You know me, I like a good short story collection. I also have a copy of The Leopard is Loose. This is something I picked up at Book Outlet when they were having a sale, as well as Tender is the Flesh. Then I have an April read. I'm going to be doing a read. If you guys have a copy with this, it's sort of an unofficial kind of buddy read that I will be starting this book on April 1st. I promised Angela that we would read this book together. So this body is not big enough for the both of us. Again, this was something I picked up at Indigo on the bargain shelf, and I've been kind of waiting to read it. So April, I'm not saying that it's going to be April 1st, I'm going to finish it, but it's going to be an April read, okay? So when we do the April monthly reading vlog wrap up, I will have completed this book because I made a promise to Angela, who is one of our viewers, and I say our, Angela, who is one of my viewers. So we're going to be reading that together. Then I've got a copy of The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Again, I think I picked this one up at a thrift store as well. I can tell, yeah, it is. It cost me $4.25 for this one. And then lastly, on the top of this TBR card, we have a copy of A Train in Winter. And I kind of feel like these three ladies, it must be like a stock photo or something, because I feel like I have seen these three ladies on at least 4 different historical fiction novels, like on the cover, just with like a different title, different font, and something else. So let me know if you guys recognize this, because I feel like I've seen these ladies before on things, and it's just like a stock photo that people take. So that is it for the top shelf of the cart. Now, the second shelf, it's going to be, these shelves, I'm sitting down on the floor right now, are going to be a little more difficult, but I'll just sort of go through them with you. I want to show you the covers. Okay, so next we have a copy of Girls' Night Out by Liz Fenton and Lisa Steinke, I guess. I've never read anything by these authors, but I think it's a mystery thriller. So Girls' Night Out. Then we have a copy of The Keeper of Lost Causes. Again, I have no idea what this is about, only that it's the first Apartment Q novel. So I guess it's like a first in a series. I actually can't remember where I got this. So I'm thinking that maybe it came from one of my eBay book hauls, and because I saw that it was the first in a series, I decided to keep it on the off chance that maybe I would read it, because I am trying to read more mystery thrillers. That's kind of like my goal for 2025, is to read more of genres that I'm not really comfortable in, or I don't really read that much. And in that vein, I'm thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid, as well as a copy of, let's see, this is a nonfiction, which is Thwarting Enemies at Home and Abroad, How to Be a Counterintelligence Officer. Then we have a copy of Sandra Brown, Unspeakable. I've never read Sandra Brown before, so this would have been held back also from one of my eBay book hauls. If you guys don't know what those are, so I'm just going to tell you what those are. Is I actually have an eBay business where I resell used books. And I think that the link for that store may be available in the description if you guys, oh no, I think I don't actually share it on YouTube, because I don't want people clicking on it and then not buying, because that would affect how I fall in the eBay search rankings. But basically, I have an eBay bookstore where I resell books, and sometimes when I get books that are interesting for me to read, I keep them aside and I read them. I like this angle. I think we're going to keep this angle so we can talk to each other. Okay, Thornhedge. This is by T. Kingfisher. Again, it's another short novella, which I really enjoy T. Kingfisher's. That's going to be one that I'm going to read sooner than later. Then again, I have also Murder, She Wrote. It's a pocketbook size. I kept this one back from an eBay book haul as well, just because I was really, really into the series. I'm a child from the 80s, you know. I grew up watching Jessica Fletcher solving mysteries, so I thought it could be really fun to read this book. It's quite short, 250 pages or so I think I could pretty easily get through that. Next, I have a copy of Shards of Honor, and this is coming to me directly as an influence from Angela from the Literature Science Alliance. So thanks, Angela. You made me spend money. So I had to get this off eBay or off Amazon. It cost me like $20 to bring it in. It's got this really weird kind of like plastic cover on it. I don't know what was happening there, but that's something that I want to read because, oh my gosh, the lighting is really bad, you guys. Okay, yeah, this is like so much better. The lighting is so much better. Okay, so I have a copy of The Reader. This was something that I picked up at a thrift store, and it sounded interesting to me at the time, but I don't know if I'm still feeling it. Like, I may have to do a read it and then haul it with this one, because I know it's a lit fic, and sometimes that doesn't necessarily work for me. Next up, I have a copy of Bird Box. This, of course, as you know, is on Netflix, but I proudly am no longer a subscriber to Netflix. I started with them when they were mailing DVDs out. Do you guys remember that? And then you had to mail them back. But they have just become so expensive and ridiculously like stingy on their policies and stuff that I just really can't support them anymore. more, but I'm going to read this book because I was actually too scared to watch the movie. So sometimes with horror, with me, it's easier if I read it because then I don't feel like scared. Because when you hear the sounds and you see the images on television and stuff, it can get like a little scary. So if I read horror, I'm better off. Okay, next I have a copy of The Midwife of Auschwitz. When I was starting to build my TBR collection, I wanted to get more into historical fiction. So that is something that I picked up with that in mind. I have a copy of Ghost Girl by Tori Hayden. Never heard of this author before. And it is a true story, a memoir of a child in desperate peril and the teacher who saved her. So again, I think that this one probably came in one of my eBay boxes, and I just decided to hold it back on the off chance that I would want to read it, because at the time that I was doing that unboxing, which I'm thinking we will probably do on camera next time, because I should be getting another sort of influx of books to sell soon. So we'll go through those together. I'll try and film it for you guys. I do have some previous eBay book unboxings earlier in the channel, which I could probably link to down below if you guys want to check those out. But I wasn't keeping books back for reading them at the time. I was just doing strict resell and small business videos at the time. So it's kind of like a different vibe than the vibe we have on the channel right now. But now I'm actually keeping the books aside to read them if I think that they're interesting. Okay. Another memoir I have here is The Year of Finding Memory. This is by Judy Fong Bates, who is a Chinese-Canadian author. And this is about how she moved to North America and how she's trying to like find her roots and stuff. I have a lot of books to go through with you guys, so I'm going to try and talk a little bit less. I'm just going to show you now some copies of some books that I have in really quick succession. So there is a copy of Love Like That. There is a copy of Immortal Danger, which is by Cynthia Eden. I think it's a like vampire-esque romantasy, but it is a standalone novel. So this is why I decided to keep it when it came across my way. I have a copy of Jade City by Fonda Lee, which is the first in a series, the Greenbone Saga. I hear amazing things about it, have never read it. A copy of The Housemaid, which I have heard mixed reviews, but I definitely want to be part of the discussion. So I will be reading that one sooner than later. Maybe I won't stick with the rest of the books in the series, but I definitely want to at least read this one. Then I have another historical fiction, a copy of The Yellow Bird Sings, and yet another, which is Before We Were Yours, which is about some children that come to parents who are not their own, and things happen. I have never read Jo Nesbo. This is a copy of The Snowman. Again, it's a mystery thriller. I don't know anything about it. It's just something I kept aside from my eBay book hauls and thought that I would read. A copy of The Pomegranate Gate, which I paid, I think, full price for at Indigo when I was just starting to shift the direction of this channel and go more towards bookish content rather than small business content. And by the way, I'm much happier about the way that things are going now. I actually enjoy making my videos now. So, you know, like, subscribe. I have The Man Who Sold Air in the Holy Land, The Fasting Girl, which is a nonfiction study about a girl that supposedly didn't eat for like months or weeks on end and just like apparently stayed alive. So there's like a conspiracy theory behind this. So that I picked up at a thrift store and thought it might be an interesting read. I have a copy of The Scent of Burned Flowers, the sci-fi Beautyland, which I think was on one of the Goodreads lists. So that's going to be one of my priority reads for this year as well. I have never read John Scalzi, and this is Starter Villain. And this one, let's be honest, I bought it for the cover, but I also do like sci-fi, and I want to be reading more mystery thriller and more sci-fi this year. So I don't know if you guys have seen Books with Emily Fox, but she really likes John Scalzi as an author. So I had seen this one also at Indigo, but ended up picking it up, I think, at a book outlet sale. So I didn't pay as much as the cover price, but I'm glad to have this and looking forward to reading it. Another sci-fi novel that I have, which I'm excited to read, is The Other Valley. And in the fantasy fairy tale retellings, we have After the Forest, which is Hansel and Gretel-esque. It's a story about the kids after the witch, so that should be fun. I have another memoir, The Glass Castle, The Lies We Told by Camilla Way, The Binding, Uprooted by Naomi Novik. I've never read her before. I'm excited to read this one. The Night Ship by Jess Kidd, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Now this one I'm going to tell you honestly, I'm a little scared to read because I read or tried to read. I actually DNF'd The Starless Sea, so I'm not sure if this one is going to work for me. There's mixed reviews about The Night Circus. I'm going to try and go into it with an open heart, but if it's anything like The Starless Sea, it's not going to go well, and I'm going to regret having spent money on it, so we'll see. Memoirs of an Addicted Brain. This one I paid $1 for at a thrift store, but I like the idea of a doctor who's like drug addicted. We have The Chosen One, Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. I don't know if I'm going to like this one. I DNF Gone Girl, but maybe it's just because I didn't like Amy's character in Gone Girl. I did end up watching the movie after, and I feel like Gillian Flynn writes characters that you're supposed to hate, so going into it with that context in mind, I may enjoy Sharp Objects, but I will let you guys know for sure. Don't you worry about that. I have The Best Kind of People. I don't know anything about this one. It came in one of my eBay hauls. I have a copy of In Charm's Way. Now, this was sent to me by Book Outlet by accident. It was just a book that ended up in my box. So I think it's like number 4 in a series, but I don't know if you need to read the other 3 in order to enjoy this. I think these they're little romance, like witchy romance books that I think probably could be enjoyed independently, so I thought I would give this one a try, so I kept it. I have a copy of Uncertain Kin. This was purchased after I got back from a trip to the Bahamas, and I wanted to support a Bahamian author, and she happens to be a Canadian Bahamian author, so I thought that I would pick up a book and see where this one went. Other than that, I don't know anything about it. I have a copy of Wayward and also The Power, which I hear excellent things about. And of course, a copy of The Adventures of Amina al-Sarifi, which I haven't read yet, but pirates, sea monsters, that's going to be a priority read for this year as well. I have a copy of Dreamland, which is a nonfiction. I don't know if I'm actually going to keep this one. I may end up unhauling it in the end because, I don't know, maybe I'm just not interested in the topic anymore, or I might try a couple of chapters, and if I find it too dry, it's going to have to go. I have a copy of Tigana by Guy Gabriel Kay. I've never read anything by this author before, and for some reason I decided to go with a chonker when that came in one of my eBay hauls. I just kept it aside. I have a copy of Brave New World. Again, it is something that I know is a classic. I don't know if I'm actually going to read it though, so that may be the unfortunate victim of an unhaul. Let me know if you guys think it is worth my time. Another one I am not sure if I'm going to keep is The Handmaid's Tale. And I know you guys are probably going to find this one a little controversial. I just don't know if I'm going to enjoy it because it's so like overhyped, and maybe because of that or despite that, I'm thinking of maybe unhauling it, honestly. I have a copy of Armada, which is by Ernest Cline, who wrote Ready Player One. I did enjoy Ready Player One. I don't know if this one is going to work for me or not. I will try it and see how it goes. What else do I have on the bottom shelf? A copy of Before I Wake, which again, I know nothing about. It's just something I kind of kept aside because of an eBay haul. I have Serious Blooms at Night by Shani Mutu. The reason I picked this up actually from a Book Outlet sale was because I had read another title by Shani Mutu, which was assigned to me while I was in university. I think it was called, it was called Valmiki's Daughter. And I enjoyed that one, so I decided to pick up Serious Blooms at Night because I'm familiar with Mutu's writing. Then there is To Keep You Safe, which is another one that is a mystery thriller. So I have quite a few mystery thrillers on my roster, including The Banker's Wife. I have a copy of One Dark Window, The Fireborn Blade, Assistant to the Villain, Never Tell, The Kite Runner, which I kept back from an eBay book haul, and it's not something that I ever would have picked up on the store shelf. I never would have picked it up brand new or even at a thrift store. So I'm not even sure why I have this book, and it's probably going to end up being unhauled, unread. I have The Memory Keeper's Daughter, which I picked up at a thrift store, and I think I have since lost interest in it. So whenever I decide to do an unhaul, I will let you guys know. Maybe we'll do it together. Maybe we won't, but I have this copy right now on my TBR. I have another memoir, Alone on the Ice, a copy of The Underground Railroad, The Revenant, The Whistler, All the Light We Cannot See. Here's another one that came to me in an eBay book haul, which I kept aside because the book cost me something like 25 cents. I don't think I ever would have picked this up at a bookstore, nor do I think I would have picked it up at a thrift store, despite all of the hype. So I don't know if I'm actually going to read it because I did pick up All the Colors of the Dark and I DNF'd that one. I DNF'd that one. So if this is anything like it, I don't know. It's sometimes with litfic, the mood, I don't know. It doesn't always work for me. So I'm skeptical about this one. Let me know if I should read it or unhaul it. And lastly, on the TBR cart, we have Girl in Pieces. So next we're going to move on to some bookshelves for more books that you guys haven't seen. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go through this bookshelf. I'll just read you the spines. I won't show you everything because if not, it'll take too long. I have a copy here of, so these ones here on the top, I should say, I've already read all of those. Then I've got a copy of Interesting Women. I have When the World Fell Silent, The Nobody People, Eternal Life, and The Gods of Jade and Shadow. On this side here, we have The Wolf at the Door, which is some short stories, and then 2 horror ones, All the Fiends of Hell and Infested. Then I have a copy of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, 4 Treasures of the Sky, and The Great Witch of Brittany, which I picked up for $8 at Indigo on their bargain shelves. I have a copy of Half a King by Joe Abercrombie. I've never read Joe Abercrombie before. Then I have The Return of Ellie Black. I have What the River Knows, and The Night Ends with Fire, which is the first, I think, in a fantasy trilogy. On this side here, we have a copy of Vita Nostra, and then another memoir. This one here is My Lovely Wife in the Psych Ward. Then we have a copy of The Cruel Prince, the first in a trilogy. Then Daughter's War by Christopher Buehlman. And if you guys will remember, I bought this one by accident because The Black Tongue Thief actually was published before this one, even though this one I believe is a prequel to it. So I suppose I could read it, but I think I'd rather read them in publication order. So I have to get a copy of The Black Tongue Thief before I can read this one. Then I have a copy here of The Lost Bookshop, and I have a copy of The Fury, which is Alex Michaelides. And I am reading Alex Michaelides' full backlist, and this I think is the last one that I have to read out of everything that he's written. I have a copy of Still Life and The Rook, which I hear is also fantastic, and I know that there are other, this is like a fantasy as well, and I hear there's very, very good reviews about this one. And I know that the other books are already out, so if I like it, I'll pick them up. I have Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, which is something I picked up at a thrift store for $3.25. A Stephen Erickson, Gardens of the Moon, which I've never read any Erickson before. And also The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, which I have also never read any Robert Jordan before. I had been wanting to watch The Wheel of Time because I know they're on like season 3, and I just love Rosamund Pike, and you know, I just wanted to get into the series, but I knew that if I didn't read the book first, probably what would happen is that I would abandon the series entirely. But I knew that if I didn't read the book first, I would never end up reading it at all, because I would watch the series, be swept up in the series, and then just never touch the books, figuring, oh, I've seen the series, so I know the story, so I don't have to read any Robert Jordan. And I don't want that to be me. I want to at least read The Eye of the World, at least one Robert Jordan before I watch the series, and before I decide if I'm going to continue with the 14-book saga or if I'm going to just abandon that and keep waiting for the series to come out with new seasons and stuff. Because sometimes I can get lazy, as I'm sure some of you probably get lazy, and when this series comes out, you're like, so many books to read, why bother keeping up with it? And I just want to be making an educated decision. Getting back to the shelves. Okay, so I have a copy of Little Bee, which I also picked up at a thrift store, but I don't know if I'm actually going to read it. I can't really remember why I bought it. I'm sure it sounded interesting to me at the time. I have How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House. I'm trying not to pull these out because the whole shelf is like actually shaking. I have a copy of The Kingdoms, which I bought, I think, pretty much based on the cover for that one. I have The Mermaid of Black Conch, How Rory Thorne Destroyed the Multiverse, and a copy of Projections. And then down here on the bottom, I have a copy of The Will of the Many, which I haven't gotten to yet. I know it's a book 1 by James Islington. I've never read his work before, but I know that I definitely want to get to that this year. I have a copy of The Hunger of the Gods and The Fury of the Gods, which completes the oh my God, I can't remember the name of the series right now, by John Gwynne. I don't know, it's like escaping me. It's the Bloodsworn saga by John Gwynne. And lastly, I have The Sea of Elephants. So the ones that you see here on the bottom, Black Feathers, The Final Strife, and The Vanishing Half, I've read already. We will take a walk over right now to the other shelves over there and see what is left to show you. So I'm going to have to do this really quickly because I don't know how much battery I have left on my gimbal. This was part of what I tried to record before that didn't record properly. So what I will do is I will try to show you all of these things quickly and we will see how we go from there. So I have a copy of By Force Alone, which I believe is also the first in a trilogy. Same for Heaven Breaker. And if you guys have noticed, there's like no particular order to any of my book storage. I have a copy of Good Omens. Now, I've actually never read Terry Pratchett or Neil Gaiman, so this might be a good place to start. Let me know if you have read that. I realize that it is a series, but again, I am not going to be watching any of this until I've at least read the first book. I have another T. Kingfisher here, A House with Good Bones. I have The Serpent and the Wings of Night, which I have the second book in the series as well that I just unboxed from Book Outlet, which is in that book unhaul video that we did before, but haven't read this one yet. I hear it's very good. I have How to Share an Egg, which is a nonfiction. This one was actually a prize that I won in a Goodreads contest. I have Tweak, which is a memoir. I have Night of Cake and Puppets, which is a prequel or like a mini novella in a series of how these two characters meet, which I picked up at a thrift store because I just happened to really like the cover and I knew nothing about it. And it says it's a companion to the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy, but I do have to get the other ones. I think I can get them from the library because it is a YA and I'm not likely to buy the series, but I'll get it from the library and then I will let you guys know what I do with it. I just bought it for the cover. I have The Three Death Sentences of Clarence Henderson, which was another surprise from Book Outlet. When I opened my order, they had put a book in there that I didn't order, and this was it. So this is a true crime. I have a copy of The West Passage, another one of my priority reads for this year. Immortal Longings, I believe also very good reviews, and first, I think, in a trilogy as well. I have a copy of Aestus the City. This is book one of a duology. Aestus the Colony is like impossible to find, so if you guys have a source, if you know where I can find it, if you're looking to sell your copy, please get in touch with me because I would really like to have the duology and I can't find it anywhere. I have The Justice of Kings, which is by Richard Swan. I have Aestus like trying to get back into the frame here. It's like, show me twice. Okay, so The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. I don't have any experience with this author. I bought this one off Book Outlet when they were having a $7.99 sale, but I do know that Willow Talks Books has spoken of Richard Swan before because there is a new series that has just come out that takes place 300 years after the events of this series, and I think it's a standalone, so I'm not sure if you need to read this series in order to read the next one, but this is one of three, and potentially not because it takes place 300 years after the fact, but it is in the same universe. However, because I am a very traditional reader, I will probably read all three of these first before I go into the second series, but it's good to know that other booktubers are talking about this author, especially because Willow says that this author is very underrated. So I'm liking that. We have The Frozen Crown by Greta Kelly. We have a copy of Empire of the Vampire, which is a J. Kristoff book, which I've never read. We have... I mean to say that I've never read the author. Okay, my gimbal is dying, so we got to hurry up with this. I have Throne of the Fallen. I have a copy of Pestilence and a copy of The Trial of the Sun Queen. And just as a reminder, guys, before we do the last shelf, which is here right behind me, we did a big unboxing, a Book Outlet unboxing a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not going to be going through those books with you again a second time. I can't remember if I said that in the intro to this video or not because I'm actually recording this a few days later. And I'm not going to go through those books with you again because you've just seen them. So it is a part of the grand total of 200 plus books that I have to read in on my current TBR, but I'm not going to go through them again with you guys in this video because that's redundant. So I'll link that video below if you guys want to see what the ones that are missing from this video are because you're new here and you haven't seen them. So I'll link that for you. But let's go ahead and do the last shelf now. So the last shelf is going to be these books here, which we'll just go through real quick. I have this set right here, which we could start with, by Kristen Cashore. These 4 I picked up in Australia when I was there. They were like really cheap. I bought 5 books for like $4 or something. So I have the whole set. I know it's YA. I haven't read it yet. If I don't like it, I'll just get rid of it. No problem. Okay, we've got a copy of Storm Dancer, again by Jay Kristoff. So I have a couple of books by Jay Kristoff, I guess, but I was unaware of that. Okay, I have a copy of Suffer the Children, as well as Jodi Picoult, which is A Spark of Light. That came from an eBay haul. I just kept that one aside. So did this one here, which is Night World. Again, this is an omnibus. L.J. Smith, Secret Vampire, Daughters of Darkness, and Spellbinder. I don't know the author. I don't know anything about this, but I kept it. Then I have a copy of Asylum, which I kept because the cover. Okay, these we saw. I have a Discovery of Witches, which I picked up at a thrift store. And I have a copy here of The Circus Train. That was from Book Outlet during one of their sales. I have the 2 remaining volumes of the Lynn Bryan trilogy, which is like a self-published kind of romantasy trilogy. I think I talked to you guys about these ones before. Then I have Lambert. Okay, I was going to make a junk journal out of that. That one came from Australia. I have a copy of The Night the Angels Came, which is another memoir. Let me see if I can find a place to stack these books in this mess down here so you can see it. Okay, The Mask of Mirrors. This was the 5th book that came with these 4 right here. So I got all these 5 for $4 Australian when I was out in Australia. But I hear The Mask of Mirrors is fantastic. So this is one that I'm excited to read as well. I have a copy of Spider Book. Put a spider emoji in the comments. Put a spider in the comments if you remember what this one is. This is Harvesting the Heart, Jodi Picoult. I have When There's Nowhere Else to Run, which is a book of short stories by this Australian author, Murray Middleton. Then I have a copy of Shaken Not Stirred, which is about, this is a self-published book by an Australian author who, it's about like a 60-plus-year-old woman who becomes a spy, which should be really interesting. And then lastly, we have a copy of Sing You Home by Jodi Picoult. You guys remember when I said that that was the last shelf? That's actually a lie. Let's not talk about the state of my, like, we walk into the house, we dump everything here shelf. We're not looking at that right now. We're not looking, but what I want to show you is, okay, so these actually are all read or DNF. These are some books that I will talk to you guys about at the end of the month. But in the back there, I have a whole bunch of Stephen King, which I haven't read. Cujo and Pet Sematary. Let me just see what these are here. Let me sit my big butt down on the floor because now I'm not even holding my gimbal anymore. That's how lazy I've gotten making this video for you guys. I don't even know what's in here. It's like, do your guys' shelves look like this at home? Okay, so I have all these Stephen King books I haven't read either, which is Cujo, Firestarter, The Stand, Salem's Lot, Night Shift, Skeleton Crew, and for some reason I have 2 copies of Skeleton Crew and Pet Sematary. And then this is really the last thing, you guys. I have the Faithful and the Fallen, the entire series. It's actually even like still wrapped up, okay? And I haven't read this one either by John Gwynne. And of course I have my copies of the Live Ship Traders. Now, I only have those 3 because I actually sold a set of 16 books like sometime last year on eBay. I decided I had held on to my Robin Hobb books for so long and I knew the stories so well that I just decided I don't need to hang on to them anymore. And I put them up on eBay and they sold. So I sold about 16 of her books. And then I had seller's remorse. And at seller's remorse, it's a real thing. And I ended up buying the trade paperback versions of the Live Ship Traders because I could honestly do without all the other Robin Hobb books, but not this series. Not this series. So I went ahead and I paid good money and I bought them again. So that's why those are there, but trust me that they're read. So that is it for the actual TBR video, you guys. I know it was a bit of a mess and it's probably no surprise why I didn't want to film it, but now it's done and hopefully you enjoyed it. And I would really like it if you could tell me in the comments which books I have that I should be giving away and unhauling unread, which books I have that I should be prioritizing reading, And, you know, any other helpful comments that you would have based on what I currently have in stock, as well as, you know, all of the other books that, if you guys remember that unboxing video we did a couple of weeks back, because there's also those that we have to take into consideration. So yeah, if you're new here, sorry not sorry. This is the kind of mess that you can expect from this channel on the regular. And if you're one of my oldies and besties, thank you so much for sticking around. You know I love you to the moon and back, and I love it that you're here. Thank you so much. Like, subscribe, and I will see you again in the next video. Ciao for now.